Chris Lalomia, welcome to the show. I am, you know, we in pre-show got to talk about a lot of fun things, but as we get to talk about the trusted toolbox and all the cool stuff that you've done, I think your adventures are worthy of talking about, and we're gonna get into your corporate refuginess as you transition from the corporate world into an entrepreneur. So, welcome to the show, brother.
Hey, I'm excited to be here and have had a lot of fun on our pre-show as well.
It is something when I get entrepreneurs on the show and to go through the experiences of what has you take the step out onto the thin branches of life and start to really look at I want to go do this myself and leave this this corporate environment. Let's take the audience back a little bit about you and what made you make this leap before we get into the trusted toolbox stuff.
Well, I had that job that a lot of people would say they covet that job. Can't believe I made the leap. I had 400 people working for me. Was a corner office, a big super regional bank, pulling in a lot of coin. Had a country club lifestyle, house in the mountains, Mercedes, the whole 9 yards. And I said no. I hated what I was doing, and I've always wanted to start my own business. And worked for that boss hole that actually convinced me that I wasn't doing what I love to do. And I told him when I left that I thank him because he helped me realize that if I didn't do this, I would be more regretful at 60 years old having not taken a shot and started my own business than I would have staying in the corporate world and getting fed all those big intoxicating bananas that we like to call big money.
Gone through that. Even all the success I had in corporate America, there was always every single day there was now every single day there was a burning in the bottom of my stomach. Now I don't know that that's completely gone being an entrepreneur and all the excitement, but today I own the burn and it doesn't own me. And in corporate America, it always felt like there was this, even with all the success and the attaboys and the people who wanted to hire me and all the great stuff that they did. I always kind of just knew that I was a hired gun, and it never felt like I could really trust the people I worked with.
Absolutely not. It didn't feel like it was a sense of team. And when you have your own small business, when I started, it was just me and one other guy, and today I've got 32 employees. But I got 32 employees rowing at the common objective, the common result, and that is to take care of customers in their houses every day. When you're at corporate America, there's always an agenda underneath the play. Are they all really rowing in the same direction? Are we all sitting there trying to actually solve a customer's problem, or are we just trying to defend our turf? Or cover our ass or do whatever we've got to do to get ahead so that we can go home, but we're not doing it all together rowing for the right direction.
50% of my day was literally covering my ass, right? I knew I treated every company I ever worked for as if it was my own, and I worked like that. I worked tirelessly for them, but then there was always someone out there shooting for something you're at, and I'm like, all right, look, I that part of it drove me nuts, and so shortly after going through a bunch of corporate layoffs through the whole world, it kind of, I don't know if a higher being or whatever that is up there that gently kicked me out on my own and said, "It's time for you to grow." And I haven't looked back. It's not always been easy being an entrepreneur, but I don't know that I would ever look back and say it wasn't exactly what I should do because there's something about the empowerment of taking that leap and waking up every day and knowing that we'll survive the good days, the bad days. There's something about that that just really is fulfilling to the soul.
Absolutely fulfilling. I felt like I was using, I think the studies say that we only use 10% of our brain. Well, I felt like I was using 2% of my brain at the bank, and I really wasn't expanding myself. And that was the challenge. Like I said, I didn't want to be 60 years old looking back on it and saying, I wonder if I could have. I wanted to know that at least I took a shot, even if I'd failed. Now failure is a pretty big motivator. You don't want to do that, but I got out and started rumbling, bumbling, stumbling through the wild world of owning your own business. And I was making mistakes left and right, but I was using my brain. I was using it for marketing and operations and technical stuff and just learning and trying to grow as fast as I possibly could into a good, better business.
Nothing like responsibility to motivate your ass every morning, right? To get your ass out of bed a little bit earlier, knowing that if I don't strap this world to my ass and start walking, it's not going to move, right? And it's going to take uh, effort, and something about that that's alive, right? There's something about that that just wakes you up and goes, yeah, yeah, okay, okay, I got this. I can do this, and you know, it really is fun to do. So you're a banker, and now you decide, okay, I'm ready to go take a leap. Where did you start? While you were a banker, did you start it? How did you make the step from corporate world to how did you make that step?
So I didn't do it right away. I came home in a fit of anger in 2006 and came in, threw my tie down, threw my jacket across the room, told my wife, "That's it, I'm out of here." And she was like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, big guy, you better come up with a plan before you do that." So that was good wisdom, good words of wisdom. I went to SCORE, that's the nonprofit, or I'm sorry, free service that the SBA puts out there. Got a business plan template and started evaluating ideas. Started thinking about, okay, what am I good at? What are my strengths? What am I not good at? What are my weaknesses? Right? What kind of businesses do I want to be involved in? I know want to. So I actually went through a lot of gyrations of trying to figure out how to buy a business. Figured I was a good operator, or could be a better operator than the one that was there. Just at the time in 2007, this is right before the big downturn. The valuations on small businesses were crazy.
Crazy.
People people expected their businesses to pull in crazy multiples, and I just didn't think so. Um, but one of my passions, one of my fun things, is I love working on houses. That was always been my fun. It was never my career, but I was always working on it. And somebody said, "How come you don't come up with a idea around fixing houses? You like to do it. You know, you always give us advice on how to do it." So I came up with the Trusted Toolbox Home Repair and Projects. Started as a handyman division. Today we're a remodeling handyman division, but I did start right when the recession started in 2008. So timing is not exactly my thing.
Well, it may be so, but I always look back and think, if the world is really everything's happening for me, right? Here, I don't feel like way. We're in the middle of a storm, or I remember I was shopping at Aldi's and thinking, man, where's my life gone? And Aldi's is a discount grocery store around here, and we would, I had limited money at one point in my entrepreneurship, but there was, the economy was crap, and I was making nothing, but there was something I look back today and think about some of that was some of the most fond memories, because it forced me to really think about some of the things and decisions I had made, right? And in those tough times, you really start to look at, and you make them through it, and from there you see the people you can trust, right? Before the economy had crashed, we had 45 employees, and we during that 2008 through 10, it was tough. We had 4 people, and we were all literally in one room. We all faced the wall in the room, right? And the guy that had the wall with the door on it had a really little wall to look at. And it was like literally the small little um group that we'd boiled down from 40 people. And but those were the people who stuck through it in good times and bad times. There were times when we didn't have enough money to make payroll, and they'd be like, all right, get me next week. And they knew a check was coming in or something would happen. And it was tough. But those people, a lot of them are still with us today. And that's 20 years later. And or no, that's they've been with us 20 years, but see, that's what 12 years later. And that it's the relationships I have with those people, I would not do anything for them, right? We make great partnerships.
I had somebody tell me, before I got into business, that you'll know you're in business when you have to scramble to get a check in the bank just to make payroll on Friday. And literally, I've had to do that multiple times. Even well, I didn't have to run and get a check, but I did have to dip in my line of credit early this year. That's after being in business for 14 years. People look at me and go, "Man, look at you! You're so successful. Overnight success, just 14 years in the making." But early this year, we were behind on getting some payments in on some remodeling jobs, and I had to dip in my line of credit just to make payroll. And when you do that, I mean, go back to what you talk about. I remember still vividly that day where I got the check from the lady in the neighborhood, got out at 4:28, got to the bank, bank's closing at 4:30, got the check in the bank, and made payroll the next morning.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And
So
those are the days.
yeah, no, that's the magic, right? And people don't see that behind. They think, "Oh my God, you're an overnight success." They don't see sweating, walking into that customer, knowing no matter what, I've got to walk out with a check today. And so that's there's the fun part of that, right? I hold on. and it's not fun when you're in it, right? You're thinking your whole life's going to end, your heart's pitter pattering. You just know the feeling. If I let people down, I've got a group of people that I can't let down today, and it takes some time. But as as every business, you start to look at it and go, all right, my job is to expand and organize, right? How can we get better at invoicing customers, right? All this stuff I used to complain that we were bad at paperwork. Today, we're not bad at paperwork because we've learned that, we start putting pay applications together, 10 days before they're due. We start to look at them and going, all right, let's get that paperwork put together really, really well so that we know what the expectations are, what the customers are. So that process in the back end happens really, really well. And so cash flow happens a lot different. When you start looking at payrolls that are, as big as my annual budget was originally, that can be it's a compounding situation, which just forces you to look at it and go, okay, great. I've got to organize a little bit better.
Yeah, I can't tell you how many times I've had to quote unquote reorganize to get better. But the one most memorable one was where I only had 4 technicians at the time. And in the beginning of the week, I had 5 what I would call redos, customers calling and complained about the work or the work had to be done. So I told the guys to basically shut the business down on Thursday and Friday. I told the guys on Wednesday, okay, I think we're good. No work till next Monday. That's when the jobs will start back up. And I went out there and took care of all of the redos on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. And you know what I found out was it wasn't the fact that these guys weren't doing the job right. Me as the estimator in one case didn't call out something. Me, me as the quality assurance guy in getting the guys ready for the job, sent him with the wrong materials. You know, and as you started to do that, so what did I do? I came up with new process. I came up with new thing. Pretty simple stuff, and that is get the signature from the customer to start, get a signature from the customer when you end, ask for the check, ask for a review, and boom, 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 things started to happen. That was just one. I've had many other opportunities to reorganize, air quotes, coming around.
No, that's the expand and organize. And as I start to look at the businesses that my wife and I have, we now grow multiple businesses. We've got different places that we can grow, but that took also a little bit of work on me, right? Because part of growing a business isn't just growing the business itself, right? Part of it is growing the entrepreneur himself or herself, right? And starting to look at my behaviors. How did I act? How could I be responsible for all the problems that we're having? If this is my business and I take full responsibility for it, how can I take the responsibilities for that happening, and what's causing that, right? What are my character defects that I've got to look at and go, okay, there's a couple things I need to work on. And that's kind of a harsh thing to do, right? To be, to really look at yourself and go, all right, how am I at fault for what's happening here? Because it was really easy to blame everybody else, but I start to look at it and go, how could this be my fault? How could be what's happening? That part of, look, I sent people out without the right tools, or I sent people out with bad estimates, or whatever that is. That's one level, but also how could my behaviors be causing this? Or how do I start to look at how I perform as a leader and train people and set people up and all that kind of good stuff. So I always feel like there's two sides of the development, right? There's the development of the oneself in growing a business, how I operate in the world, and then how do I operate the business itself and grow the processes that we use to grow.
Yeah, you hit on a big one, and I'll share. I had to work on myself a lot as I was growing. One of my, if I put this in my book, that my greatest strength is my greatest weakness, and that happens for a lot of people. And one of my greatest strengths, where people are driven or drawn to me, is my passion. But I can easily drive people away with my passion, and going back to being accountable for it and trying to grow and being such an absolute maniac when it came to customer service and trying to grow the business. My behaviors got out of line. I honestly, I had to go to counseling. I was with a therapist for 2 years, worked on the behaviors, and one of the best lines I would tell everybody is that I use now in my coaching is that when you react to somebody, what is the outcome you're trying to get? And you better slow down and breathe before you try to do something that probably won't be the right thing. And for me, it was lashing out too quick, and that was hard. And for me to grow and to get to as big as we are now, I let my guys do things, and I back off a lot more, and I'm a little more thoughtful. And I'm always thinking about what's the objective, what's the outcome, what's the result of my interaction with them. And so I'm not as near as heavy as I used to be. I can be direct. I can ask for results, and always got to push people for that. But I'm doing it in a different way, and that was a big it was a big one. I'm telling you.
Look, it sound in my head, it sounded okay, and but the outcomes weren't performing the way I want. If if the world happens, everything that's in my world, I've made up. This is my matrix, right? If everything about this world is every single thing that's in it, I've created, that you start to look at those behaviors and go, how could some of my anger have been a problem? How could some of my my overcommitment be a problem? How could all of it? How could the way I eat and sleep and interact with other human beings be a problem? There was a time in my career where I believe taking people out drinking was I want to relate to them, right? I would hire an executive, I'd take them out drinking. And I thought this was a genius idea. I thought they would be able to relate to me better.
Huh. Yeah, that's good. No, I still do like doing that. Don't get me wrong, but you're right. Is that exactly how you want to interview and get to people and try to relate with them when really they want to hear more about what are they doing? Are you real? Are you real with them? We just had one of my favorite things at my company. What we do is on every couple months or so we'll have a happy hour out back, but it really this time was a chili cook off. And we get to break bread and have food together. And the technicians from the field get to come to the office in the afternoon and do that. And those are some of the best times we ever have because it's just us relating to each other in a non-work setting, if you will, out back in the warehouse, and just trying out everybody's chili and stuff. It was just a blast. And we had that last Friday. It was just great.
It was great. The stuff that we find out about that getting related to the people that work here, people that can actually trust that who you are is, you're a man of your word, or you are who you are in front of the customer or behind the customer.
Right. Yeah. They want to know who they're working for. That, like I said, for me, I use this all the time in our sales pitches, and I talk to guys. You have to be authentic, and I got to be me. And that's another refugee from the corporate world thing that I had to learn is that I had to be me, and I had to let me shine a little bit more than I did in corporate America. I had to hold it back in because it was a pretty buttoned up group, and you had to watch how much of your personality you let shine. Here, the personality is what keeps everybody rolling.
No, it's funny how the people get to know you and trust you for your authenticity. And today that's a really important part of it, right? I walk the walk, I talk the talk that I walk, and I get to be now. That took some practice, right? I've had some consultants in here that really kind of changed, as we grew, and I would keep bumping up against these ceilings, right? I would bump up against the ceiling. I go, oh, great, we get to 10 million or 20 million, and I'd get to a point where like, oh, okay, great, and my goal was always, how do I break that $100 million mark? And I would keep bumping up against these ceilings, and I'm like, well, what was causing that? And I bring in some consultants who sit me down, and I think I was telling you on pre-show. I've talked about this before on the show, but the lady walks in, she goes, "Hey, today we're gonna lock your door." I'm like, whoa, what? I'm like, great. We're gonna lock my door. I get the focus back here, and I get all this stuff done. And she's like, no, we're going to lock your door and keep you in it because you keep going out there and messing with everybody. You got this big S on your chest. You can't wait to show everybody. And you get significance by showing everybody how valuable you are. And you hire these amazing human beings, and then you got to go jump in there and get in their way. And I'm like, what are you talking about? I'm like, no, I'm out there helping them. She goes, no, you've hired great people. They've got this. You've trained them well. Let them do their thing. And I sat behind the door for 3 months. Like literally, I sat behind my office, and they granted me 1 hour with each exec. I had 7 meetings a week, that for 1 hour. And that's all I was allowed to do. I was allowed to interact with them for that 1 hour, for once a week. And it was a huge, one, it made me focus on clear objectives with them, and gave me ways to really develop the business in a much different experience than I had before, right? Where I wouldn't call them all day, every day. Every time an asteroid would go through my brain, I'd be like, hey, what about this? Hey, what about? And it really focused me on, they've got the little stuff. How do we go in there and create relationships together, and then focus on some details? And really, what I find out is today I still I follow that same process. That most of our hours is really catching up with each other, And then there's a couple of spots in there where we really focus on some detail stuff that we need to work on, because we've got a pretty well oiled communication tool with each other, that the reporting that they do, the systems that they operate with, become a lot easier to see. It's very transparent, and I know they've got the rest of it. And that took a lot of practice. I would never have gotten that had someone outside of me never showed that to me, right? And it was quite refreshing. And there was another time when my wife came in, and my wife became the president of the company, and I became the founder, and that was a big one, right? Like, oh, but I'm here to you're going to take over. And like, yeah, the group leadership body said, hey, look, we're going to continue to grow, and she's going to take over as president. And it was at first, it was a little shocking, right? But it really did free me up to do a bunch of other stuff in life, which has been wonderful. But at first, there were some significant problems, right? Where was I going to get my significance from? And I got a lot of significance out of running things around here. And, I would introduce myself as, hi, I'm Anthony from CDO Group, and I'm the president. And there was some significance in that conversation, and I had to learn to find significance in other parts of my life, which it took some evolution. So I think there's a lot to learn as we develop both the business and ourselves.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with having to grow yourself to grow your business. And that's sometimes we are the limiters in there. We limit the company and limit their growth potential as well, because you hired good people, and they want to go out there and show you how good they are at what they do, and they want some self-satisfaction. You try to go in there and do it for them, they don't get the satisfaction out of the job either. And so that's a big lesson. A lot of times leaders aren't self-aware enough to get that figured out. So by that lady locking you in that room, I guess you got self-awareness real quick.
There's a lot of it's like like a thermostat, right? I'm very much like a thermostat. Like, when it's 75, 74 degrees, I start getting a little hot, right? I got to turn the AC on, right? And there's kind of like my upper mark. And then if I get down to 60, I don't know, 67 or something, it starts getting a little cold in here. And that's what happens around here. When it gets busy, I get up there, and I start self-limiting myself at the higher level growth. And then when it got down to, down low, then I'd kick back in. I start, working real hard, and I'd kick it back up again. And something happened when I changed that dynamic, when I stood back and got to look at the business and work on the business, not in the business. There was a whole nother way of doing it. But the problem was I did not have the words to articulate that. I did not know how to do that. I mean, I'm a street fighter. I grew up literally fighting this business from nothing. And I kept believing if I worked harder, it would be more successful. If I could just work more, I would be more successful. And at one point you realize that's not a very a sustainable model, right?
No,
So
it sure isn't. That's a definitely part of the thing I've had to learn. It's allowing me to do this podcast right now. It's during work hours. They're all doing their thing, and I'm out of their hair, so they're thrilled that I'm not in there. But I found, like, in times where I've been working so hard, where you said, okay, now it's time to start thinking and breathing and reflecting. You're like, no, I got to get back to work, and you realize that that's where the heavy lifting happens. Is when you really start thinking about, where do we want to be in a year? Where do you want to be in 3 years? Where is the team at now? Where are we going? What do we have to do to improve to get there? Those are the things that, boy, that's actually, just saying it out loud, it's making me start to sweat. But
right.
that's the hard work, right? That's the Olympics. You got to get to work on that stuff.
Well, I always had a hard time when they said to me, where do you want to be later on? And to sit down and know where I wanted to go or what I wanted to do was really tough. And I remember I did a visualization with this one lady, and she's like, all right, what was the house you wanted to? What's the house you want to live in? Right? When you want to retire, where do you want to live as a house? And I remember I could see like the top part of the house. I couldn't see the house, right? There was like, I don't know, whatever block it was. I couldn't see it. Today I can see the lawn, I can smell the air. And that took some work from somebody else. There was a great woman I hung out with. Her name was Carol, and she's an older woman. And she came in one day and she said, my granddaughter, she has this, she was in my jewelry box, and she found this clump of necklaces, and they were all knotted together. And she comes over, Grandma, can you help me with this box of with these necklaces? And she's like, yeah, sure, sure. So she starts looking at it as a kind of a ball, and she kind of pulled at it a little bit, and she realized, that wasn't going to get it. So she she took it, she laid it out on a cloth, and she kind of laid it out on there. She looked at it and she goes, "Well, I need some help." So she went over and she got a magnifying glass, and she goes, "Well, at first I need some outside help." And took the magnifying glass and I kind of did that. And she goes, I went over, she had some T-pins. She had some T-pins, these little pins, and she kind of spread it out and put some T-pins in it. And then she noticed that there was one that was kind of easy to take out. So she kind of got to the easy one first. And then she goes, well, I noticed there was the second one wasn't that hard. So she worked on that second one a little bit. And then she got to the third one, which was really kind of hard, but she kind of unwound that. But as she unwound the third one, the fourth and fifth one kind of fell apart. And she goes, "It was a great lesson." It was a great lesson for me. It's like, sometimes I can't see it. I can't, if I keep pulling at the necklaces, they just get tighter, right? When I was able to lay it out and get some outside help to really look at it, right? This magnifying glass she brings in some T-pins, and she could spread it out a little bit, and she could tackle the first easy problems, right? We needed some more help. We need some more leadership. And for our business, my wife coming in, she just thought about people differently. Today I ran it like a Spartan war camp, right here. I was like a coach, go get them, sick them tigers. Today we have families and people, and it's a much more, the way she operates is a lot different. So that was one thing that really changed the way the company ran, just her and her family values and that process. Now, it wasn't that I didn't say I'll have a lot of value to add to the company, because that's who we are in the business, but just noticing that having someone else be able to show me that was a great learning experience for me, and having some outside help sometimes helps.
Yeah, I obviously people don't realize it, but you do realize that you solve problems better when diversity of opinions are in place. And if you allow for free flowing opinions and diversity thoughts to go through, you're going to have a better outcome, a better solution to that problem you're trying to solve. And that's the gold where that happens, as you start to get synergy out of people. So with your wife coming in with a different mindset and view, together you guys made better decisions, and probably and that's why a lot of people probably stuck with you, because of those better decisions you guys were making.
And then she was able to bring in other kinds of people, right? A lot of the people that I would hire were different, and she just really had it. I call her the gauntlet. And today, we don't hire many people, especially in higher level positions, without her going through it, because she just has a way with people. She could really feel them and be with them and read them, and it's a great gift she has. And today, all of our executives go through some time with Sophia, and they're going to report to her, and they work with her. So it's really kind of a neat thing that she does, and it's a lot of fun. So I think that's a lot of the stuff that we evolve, but I have to let go of stuff, right? A lot of what I've learned as a leader, it's not as much that um, it was things I have to learn; it's things I have to let go of, right? Because I've often heard it said, we've got everything we need, we just got to let go of the stuff that's in the way of it, right? And that's a lot of bit of my experience, is figuring out what I don't need to carry around. And some stuff like I had to be in charge, I had to make all these decisions. Letting go of that all of a sudden created a better place for me to see things clear, and then be able to help others a lot more, a lot easier.
Yeah, that's hard, the letting go part. I've actually, I feel like I've done a pretty good job of that. But I got a great example where just recently I hired a new remodeling manager. Guy's been with me for 7 years. He's a project manager. He thinks about things a little bit different than we do. A lot of times we can get into violent agreement on topics. But I've had to learn to let go and let him just take charge and run these guys. And in literally 4 months, he is outperforming the other remodeling manager I had in place, putting his stuff in place. But I found myself jumping in to go to help, quote unquote, him, and he had already fixed and done what he needed to do, and I was already behind. So finally, I just sit back and go, all right, you just keep giving me weekly reports. I'm on a roll. You just send me some before and after pictures and some videos so I can get those posted out for you, and we're rocking. And that's what he does. But it was hard, and he had to knock me out of the way a few times.
Yeah, no, come on. I jump, and that's what I would do to my people. I would jump in, like even the guys that were great at it. I had to kind of jump in, because when I find out later on, is something that was my significance in that I needed to feel like I was part of that, like someone doing something better than I could do it was a little intimidating. And today there are dozens of people that do better than I can do, and it's still okay. Like there would be times I would be in meetings and we'd hire these really great people, and I would feel like, oh my God, uh, am I still valuable? have I become a useless old man? And the real experience of that was really, I remember sharing that with the leadership body, like being vulnerable and sharing that. And then really realizing that later on it kicked in, right? The wisdom who you are kicks in, and just trusting that. But there were times when the brain, I call him Fred. I've got this guy in my head. I call him Fred. And Fred, a nice guy, right here. In fact, if Fred was someone outside of myself and talked to me the way Fred does, I'd punch him in the mouth.
Yeah.
Right? Fred's a just really a troublemaker in my brain. And every once in a while, Fred, so I've had to like literally learn how to not listen to Fred. And in the mornings, I'll give you a great example. I he starts before I wake up. Like, first voice out of my is Fred. What about this? What about that? What about this? What about that? Oh my God, what about it? And I now I learned, I go to YouTube, I get a little Eddie Perino or some great motivational speaker, on YouTube, and I put them on. I gotta drown his voice. I gotta lie back to him, right? And I gotta drown his voice out, and I go to something that's, a little bit more helpful, right? A little someone's saying something positive, and I never quite understand where that voice comes from. And I was, I looked back and I thought, where does that voice, where does it come from? Where's Fred come from? Why is he there? And a lot of it is, hey, look, that's how we survived, right? That's the brain kind of protecting us. But today, sometimes it gets a little outdated. Fred's got to, we're going to shut him up a little bit.
Yeah. I think there's a study out there that says 90% of our thoughts are negative, and only 10% of your thoughts are positive. I joke that sometimes I think I'm 99.97% negative, and it's hard to drive those out. And left to your own devices, the negative ones are definitely in there. But one of the biggest traits of entrepreneurs or small business owners that I've seen that I know is a success habit, and that is we are we're eternal optimists, and willing to solve a problem, and we'll stay with it until we solve that problem, and optimistically think that we'll get it nailed and knocked out. And that's what you need. And I need that when I get to those deep dark spots too.
Yeah, no, for sure. Um, they're great learning lessons. And another, when I talk about coaches, I bring in coaches that work on that part of the brain as well. Starting to really look at, we're doing a practice with a group that came in for our leadership body. We did the book 15 commitments of leadership, and it was great. And you start to look at my behavior above the line, below the line, and how when I'm below the line, some of my negative behaviors and how that holds back my relationships with others. And then start to look at the stuff above the line, and how do I spend more time above the line, and creator and mentor and all that kind of good stuff that's useful to the group. And you know, I didn't have that language to articulate that when I started, right? And in fact, I wouldn't even known that there was stuff out there where I'm holding myself back, that the behaviors and actions I'm taking, I'm causing that, right? I didn't even know that was there. I just thought there were tough times. I just thought it was, I was doing my part. And today, do lots of coaching and support, right? And becomes a gift to look at and go, hmm, that's a fun thing to look at, and start to look at the opportunities of evolving that to another way of being.
Yeah. Always even constantly evolving and getting back to get a better version of you will create a better version of your company. And that's such a key thing to get those positive mindsets in there. I love that you guys are doing that coaching around that stuff. I actually just took a note on that.
Well, and the same thing for the people, right? I mean, it's the same thing for our leadership body. And I always say that what we've learned the most is that as leaders, we have to do more work than anybody, right? We do more work in order to lead the organization. We have to do more work on the self than anybody in the organization, and then we start to work on each other as a leadership body, right? And then we can give that gift to the people that work for us and start to say, look, as our people get better, as they live better lives because of the work that we do here, right? Even we have a saying here, even our mailman benefits by the people that we become, right? The mailman that walks in the door here every day. How do we live in a way that they benefit because they've interacted with the people that are in this company? And that all is a practice of an ever evolving practice to go through.
Yeah. I love that the mailman thing. That's brilliant. We're the mailman's even better off because we're better off. But it makes it a better, hardworking environment. Whether it's a war mentality, or whether it's a family mentality, that whatever the culture is within your company, being better versions of yourself as the leader at the top sets the tone. And that's a big thing I've learned. I've watched it too in companies that don't have the right culture set. It usually starts from the top. And that's where you've got to be very diligent and vigilant on making sure that you're creating that culture you want in your own company, which is something I've been very ardent on here in the last 2 years.
How did you create the wolf pack with all your technicians? I know you guys call them the wolf pack, right?
We do. Yep. So my lone wolves, these guys are skilled trades. And so understanding who we've got blue collar workers. These guys are skilled tradesmen. They can work at people's houses. They may be fine finished carpenters. They may be drywall guys. They may be plumbers. But really, we are handymen because we have a lot of different skills around the house that we can handle at a certain time. The mentality of the lone wolf, though, has been that he's on his own, that he can forage for himself. He can provide shelter for himself. He provides for his own. He doesn't need a company, doesn't need a guy, another entity to help him get there. But what we do is we try to show these lone wolves that they're better off being in our wolf pack by following our process and our systems. And we still allow their inner wolf to come out, because you know what happens if you try to tame a lone wolf too much, he becomes a domesticated dog, and domesticated dogs become problems. They let the customers run over them. They maybe not have the they may not have the positive attitude that they need to go out there and solve the problem for them. They're going to let somebody else solve it for you, so their problems now become your problems. So we make sure that our lone wolves know that they're being rewarded for being a wolf and being a skilled artist, but there's also the wolf pack. We can forage better, we can provide better shelter, and we can provide for your families even better.
And that's ultimately what we're wanting, right? For our people to go home more satisfied, right? To live better lives, that their families prosper, their communities prosper, their state prospers, and ultimately that makes our country prosper. And that's where today's entrepreneur is on that growth edge, right? Just first we were out to solve a problem. Now the problem becomes how do we support the people that solve the problem? And I think that's the gift of where we are as a community. We're seeing much more, a much more diligent approach to the people that work for us. I mean, first of all, losing people today is it's a much bigger cost than it ever has been before, right? We're losing people in the trades. We're losing people, and getting when we lose them, that impacts our revenue stream, our ability to create revenue. And that's a much. It's never been as big a deal as it is today. Losing people is it's a big deal.
I used to have people say the cost of losing an employee is X, and honestly, you can't even put a number on it because it is disruptive. And when we're trying to grow and do things that we want to do, but we're losing people who were good members of our team, that's always been a dagger. And there's always two or three. I got a very transient workforce. A lot of these guys think about the next gig, and if the next gig looks better, they may run over there. So we keep trying to explain to them that our wolf pack is going to be better off longer term for you. But when you lose one, it definitely stings. And you've got to definitely work over it and make sure that you got the processes and people in place to overcome when you lose somebody in your company.
You guys do a lot of work in people's homes, right? You're
Oh
actually
yeah.
you're in their house. I mean, that's a very intimate relationship. What's the secret to working in people's homes successfully?
The big part of this is you realize we talk about this for a lot of people, their home is their number one asset in their investment portfolio.
That's right.
And if it's not the number one, then it is the number one asset in their personal portfolio of their family. This is where they break bread, raise their kids. This is their inner sanctum. This is where they get away from the world. And now you're coming in and you're invading the world. So we train the guys on three things, and we call them the three secrets of the customers. First thing is when these guys show up, is that the customer has an unrealistic expectation that the job is already completed, even though you just showed up at the door.
That's right.
And so we have to change our behaviors to play up to that anxiety level, to start to set that expectation by getting after it and being a professional of what we do. The second thing we tell our guys is that be somebody that they like. People buy from people, they don't buy from companies. You may go to Amazon to buy it because it's a commodity you want to buy. But if you think about all of your interactions with people, you'll buy from a person, and they might just happen to have the product or be part of a company that you liked, but you're going to buy from them. and that's going to do that. So we call it be the face of the company and be somebody who's likable. And the third thing is by setting an expectation with the customer, you can exceed it and do better. But one of the things we talk about is that people have unrealistic expectations. And if you don't document what you're doing and show them how much it's going to cost, they'll automatically think it's half of how much you're going to tell them. And if they have a discount or they take something off the job that we're doing, they're automatically going to double the discount. So we train our guys consistently on the three secrets of the customers, and I let them in on a little secret. I'm like, there you go. It's good. You guys now know more about them than they know about themselves. Now use that to your advantage, so you can go out and show them you're the artist that you want to be.
Nice, nice. That's it's a great thing to look at, right? Know that their 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 expectations aren't realistic, and no matter where you are in that, that's why it's really a tricky scenario if you don't over communicate, kind of that expectation. Well, Chris Laloma, I am Lalomia. Chris Lalomia, I am so excited to have you on. It was it's awesome. If people want to get a hold of the Trusted Toolbox in the Atlanta area, what's the best place for them to get a hold of you?
Well, you can always find us online at thetrustedtoolbox.com. We're in Atlanta and Athens. If you want to get a hold of me, it's just my first name, Chris, at thetrustedtoolbox.com. You can always email me. Happy to share what I've learned. I'm actually through this podcasting going out there. I have a podcast of my own called the Small Business Safari. I've met a number of other people in the business, home services especially. And it's been great to kind of expand my network and help me expand my net worth.
It is awesome, brother, watching us go through and going through the steps and the grind of being an entrepreneur and growing. And I honor you for the work that you've done with the people that you're working with. It is a lot of fun to continue to communicate with you. Anytime you guys have a breakthrough or something you want to communicate to the world, please use the platform to do so. It's great having you on, brother. It's been a lot of fun. So thanks.
All right. I enjoyed it as well. Thanks again for having me.
All right, audience, as always, please go and support Chris and his group. And if you like the podcast, please take a second right now and like and subscribe. It means the world to me and Chris to get that feedback. It really does. So if you've stuck around this long, please take a second to do that to support us. And as always, thanks for listening.